And go ahead and also in the chat, you can go ahead and share what brought you here this evening. And we're the LA Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. Our mission is to advance sustainability and resilience across the city through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. We have 4 active committees. They are advocacy, energy, transportation, and trees. And we will talk more about them. We'll have committee report backs at the end of the evening. Our agenda tonight, we're going to do super quickly. We're doing this introductions and housekeeping, and then we will dive very quickly into the candidate forum for the evening. Then, as I just mentioned, we'll do committee reports. We'll have an opportunity for anybody who wants to do announcements, and then we will ask for evaluations from anybody and everybody, we hope. We do have community agreements that we ask everybody to follow. If you can turn on your camera and show your face so that we continue to build a community this evening, that is really helpful. Please assume good intent and give everybody the benefit of the doubt and demonstrate respect and appreciation. We do have the chat open and we are happy for you to use it, but we ask that you refrain from having too many side conversations in the chat. And going along with that is we ask you to listen intently and also step forward and then step back, meaning contribute and let others do the same. Be concise if possible, and of course it's important to have fun. Want to introduce the board, and so I'll go ahead and do that now and introduce a couple other people as well. I see Charles first. So Charles, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
You got me just as I was swallowing. Hi, everyone. My name is Charles Miller. I'm on the board here. I'm also the chair of the Green Committee for the Palms Neighborhood Council and involved in a number of other environmental efforts, including I'm the chair of Los Angeles Climate Reality Project and on the Community Forest Advisory Committee as the CD5 commissioner in Los Angeles.
Great, thank you. And Aurora.
Hi, good evening. Welcome, everyone. I'm Aurora Corona. I'm also a board member of the Los Angeles Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and I live in Pico Union, former Pico Union Neighborhood Council member. I'm glad to see everyone here, and thank you.
Thank you. And Alex.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Tangelos. I'm formerly the chair of the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council Sustainability and Beautification Committee, and I'm also currently the sustainability chair for my law firm for Southern California.
Thank you. And Muriel.
Hi, my name is Muriel Nakar. I am also a board member of this board, and I am the co-chair for the Transportation and Land Use Committee.
Thank you. And we have 2 non-board members who are helping us tonight manage the forum in case anybody gets unruly. Terry, go ahead.
Terry Saucier with the Tarzana Neighborhood Council and LANCSA, and glad to be here.
Thank you. And Kathy.
Kathy Schreiner, president of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council, and glad to be here.
And I should mention, thank you, Kathy. My name is Lisa Hart. I'm the executive director, and I'm also on the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council Green Committee. Okay, I think that's probably it for housekeeping, except somebody, if it hasn't happened yet, somebody will put the community agreements in the chat. And Terry and Kathy are here to help make sure that we all follow them, although I honestly don't anticipate there will be much of an issue this evening with that. But we do take them seriously, and if they aren't followed, we will actually ensure that they are followed or that people will be removed.
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you make sure one of the board members are a co-host in case you follow?
Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you. That merits interrupting because that's the stuff we normally do when we are not in the wrong meeting Zoom link. So yeah, okay. I just made you a host, so you can go ahead, Charles, and make other people co-hosts. I guess I shouldn't have made you host, but I did. So now I've given Charles far too much power. So if things go awry, now we know why. Okay. Okay, so I think we can dive into the meat of the program, although since we're supposed to be all going vegan, I guess we can't use the term meat the way we used to anymore. But if somebody can please go ahead and spotlight me and Alex and Marissa and Aida now, that would be super helpful because we're going to introduce ourselves and get into the topic. Hydee Feldstein Soto withdrew from the event. I would call it recently. Some people would not call it recently. That's debatable, but she did withdraw, which was a real disappointment to me. But still, I think we're going to have a really, really substantive conversation that I'm really excited about with two of the candidates for city attorney. So I'm really excited to have Aida Ashouri and Marissa Roy with us here tonight. So I'm just going to go very briefly through some of the guidelines, I guess we can call them, for the forum, and then we will jump in. So we've already asked the candidates, I told them what the community agreements are, and they, along with all of us, are asked to follow them. I would say most of the questions that I'll be moderating tonight, and most of the questions that I'll be asking were actually submitted in advance. We asked people to submit them online, and we got some really, I think, fantastic questions. So I tweaked some of them, but really the vast majority are from other people. Since there are just the two of you, we'll just be going back and forth between you. So mostly back and forth, except for there's one question that is really mostly for Marissa. So there'll be a slight tweak in the order, but mostly it's just be going back and forth, starting with Aida, just because it's alphabetical order. I will be able to ask follow-up or clarifying questions, and each of you will be able to rebut and also ask follow-up clarifying questions if you want. So just let me know. So we do have some flexibility, and if we want it to be, it can be a little bit more conversational, just so you know. Let's see, I'm just looking at what I've written just to make sure I'm not missing anything. I think that's about it. Alex here, the reason she's here is because she's our timekeeper. Because of our little earlier glitch, she might not be the best timekeeper, but we'll see how it goes. And we can go old school and use my iPhone or her iPhone if need be. I think that's it. Marissa or Aida, do you guys have any questions or anything you want to clarify before we start?
I just was wondering if there'll be any warnings regarding the time or clock or anything.
Well, yeah. So Alex has, we're going to use, good question. We have the fancy Zoom timer, which will show you the time. So yes.
I've been having technical difficulties with my Zoom timer, so we're doing old school. I'll just hold up the timer.
Oh, we're going old school. Okay. So we're not super fancy. And there might be a little bit of a glare, Alex, just so if you can manage the glare. Yeah, that's pretty glary. So you might want to change your light. Yeah, it's pretty glary. Okay. I'm glad that even young people have technical difficulties. That always makes me feel better. But okay, so we'll do the best we can. And we'll start. And we're not, we can be, I don't think we're going to be like super harsh about the time. I mean, I'm not in that mood right now, just so you know. Okay, let's get started because it's already 6:43. My gosh, how the time flies when you're having fun. How's that, you guys? The glare is really awful.
I can put warnings in the chat, minute, 30 seconds also, I'll hold it up still, but just in case the glare's too hard. And I'll see if I can still figure out the lighting also.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. All right, let's get started, and maybe I'll try to do it. I don't know if I'm good at multitasking, but we'll see what I can do. Okay, so we will start, and let me see if I can work on my timer, which I had not worked on in advance. Yeah, that's a lot of glare. Okay, so this one is going to be for 1.5 minutes. If each of you can, you're each invited to take up to 1.5 minutes to make an opening statement. And so we're going to start with Aida.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to first thank you for the opportunity to tell you about myself. I've been an activist and organizer for more than 25 years and a lawyer for more than a decade. My platform is inspired by my own life experience as a lifelong renter growing up in working class communities and seeing my mom battle discrimination and wage theft. That is why my platform is centered on protecting renters, workers, cyclists, constitutional rights, the poor, and survivors of violence, and of course, the environment, which we'll discuss this evening. I have also been an environmental justice advocate for decades as an 18-year-old activist. I worked with the Bus Riders Union to advocate for better transit, then with the Community for Better Environment to block the reopening of a refinery in Santa Fe Springs. I later worked with CalPERG, leading a campaign to investigate a toxic site for health hazards in Huntington Beach. And after law school, I worked with attorneys at Earth Justice pro bono to successfully battle the Chevron refinery in El Segundo, which sought a permit revision to its BACT and removing monitoring during equipment malfunctions and pollution restrictions. I am the current appointed chair of the Environmental Affairs Committee of the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council, and we have advocated for getting rid of pesticide use in our parks, increasing native plants, and reducing LAPD helicopter use. I'm a lifelong anti-war activist, and the U.S. military is the single largest institutional emitter of greenhouse gases worldwide. As city attorney, I will advocate for the environment and the people of Los Angeles, just as I have for decades. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Marissa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. And I want to also thank you all so much for rescheduling last time when I was in the hospital. So just appreciate you. I'm running for LA City Attorney because I understand the power of this office to be, the potential of this office to be the largest public interest law office in the city. And that's what I've spent my entire legal career doing. We'll talk a little bit about some of the climate work that I helped pilot in law school, but after law school, I ended up coming to the LA City Attorney's office because we have the power as the city attorney to sue any business for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. And so I brought big wage theft cases and put thousands of dollars back in workers' pockets as outside counsel for LA County. I was handling all their litigation against the Trump administration, part of over a dozen legal actions against the first Trump administration. And now at the California Department of Justice, I'm in consumer protection, where we are suing big tech for all of the ways that they have caused mental health harms, as well as on the tenants' rights teams, where we just returned $500,000 back to tenants who had been living in uninhabitable conditions. The LA City Attorney's Office, out of over 1,000 legal professionals, has less than 5% working on public rights. And this city attorney abolished the Environmental Justice and Protection Unit. And so now there are no full-time attorneys working full-time on environmental issues. I would scale up this work and ensure that there are full-time attorneys devoted to climate work.
All right, thank you. Okay, and let me ask, is it helpful when Alex is texting the times, or do you not need that?
I find it helpful.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, and for my next question, and I'm also going to give you guys 1.5 minutes, I would like each of you to explain your understanding of the role of the Office of the City Attorney, and if you like, your vision of the office. Okay, and so this time it is Marissa. Go ahead.
Sure. So the city attorney office is a dual function office, meaning it represents the municipal corporation whenever we are sued, writes ordinances, provides legal advice to the departments and council. Then it also represents the people in both misdemeanor prosecution, but in this huge power under California's unfair competition law to sue any business for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. That means that we can enforce state environmental protections and local environmental protections. It means that we can sue corporate polluters. It means we can sue the companies that lie about the impacts of climate change. And then we can use that recovery to reinvest in greening projects with the community. This public interest power of the city attorney's office is what I've spent my entire career doing at the city, for the county, and now the state. And my vision is to scale it up from being 5% of the office to being 20% of the office, to make sure that we're devoted to environmental justice, to workers' rights, to tenants' rights, to suing the Trump administration, and that we're working with community to build these lawsuits.
All right, thank you. And Ida, go ahead.
Thank you. The city attorney's office leads 500 attorneys in multiple divisions. 35% of the office is focused just on prosecuting crimes, and it has 5 offices dedicated to doing that. 19% on defending lawsuits, 19% on advising the mayor, city council, and the 50 departments and commissions, and then the remaining section on affirmative litigation, as well as advising the ports of LA, the airports, and LADWP. As a candidate that has worked in and actually has experience in all these different segments, I want to make sure that our prosecution section is actually focused on care and not conviction, so not criminalizing poverty, not further pursuing or furthering racial profiling. I want to make sure that when we defend lawsuits, that we're doing it in the public interest. And most importantly, especially when it comes to this section, the environmental section, is when we're advising the mayor, city council, and the 50 departments and commissions, as well as the other units, to make sure we're incorporating environmental issues like CEQA. And we have seen the result of that when we do not do that is more lawsuits when our city ignores these environmental concerns. And a good example is LA Zoo expansion, where they affirmed this environmental report and ended up getting sued and engaged in 2 years of litigation, and they ended up giving the organization what they wanted in the first place. And so my goal is making sure that our city is following environmental laws, enforcing them, and prosecuting them.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next question is a little wordy, and that's my fault. I apologize. But as part of the charter reform process, there has been and is some discussion about making the city attorney role an appointed rather than an elected position, or changing the structure of the office, or dividing up the roles. And my understanding is that the Charter Reform Commission has recommended dividing up the roles so that the city attorney prosecutes misdemeanors, but does not represent the city, and that representing the city be an appointed role in order to avoid conflicts of interest. Now, I could be wrong about some of that, so if I'm wrong, you're welcome to correct me. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what the City Reform Commission has recommended, and also your opinions on this very broad discussion and all the options, this whole debate, which of course would have huge implications. I mean, I know this wouldn't take effect for many years to come, but it would certainly have enormous implications for the role going forward. So I think we are starting with Ida.
Thank you for this question. It's incredibly
And sorry,
important.
I forgot to tell you how much time. I apologize. So this one, I apologize, we're doing this one for 2 minutes.
Okay, great. This is a really important question, and actually, I was at the Charter Reform Commission meeting opposing this decision because of a gamut of reasons, and it's oddly enough something that I agree with the incumbent upon. And she actually wrote a great letter regarding it. And there's plentiful of problems with this. Let me first start with the fact that when you have an appointed person, obviously you're going to remove the accountability to the people. You're moving the voters' rights to elect somebody by the people, and instead entrusting the mayor and the city council to make that decision, who are obviously going to pick somebody that is going to be more amenable to their interests. And so there's already going to be a lack of independence in that regard. The charter reform actually tried to do this before under Mayor Reardon, and it didn't work. City Attorney Hahn actually at the time advocated greatly against it. Every single major city attorney in our state, including San Francisco, Oakland, Fresno, they're all elected. There's no office that I know of that has separate offices. This will produce inefficiencies, actually cost more money because you have 2 separate offices. Think of human resources, all these duplication of the offices. And just think again, the independence when it comes to the controller, and the city attorney is going to have to make sure that the city, again, it's advising the mayor, city council. So if it's appointed position, it's going to have less independence to do that. And conflicts of interest occur in every law firm and every legal entity. And if you split up the offices, actually, there's going to be more inefficiencies and more likelihood of conflicts of interest, I would say. And I would be opposed to actually splitting it up for those various reasons. I think it should be accountable to the people, and I'd be very concerned about a mayor, and especially when we already have a legal system or an electoral system that is very much run by money and real estate lobbyists and corruption. I wouldn't want it to be appointed.
I love that touch, Alex, with the fingers. That was really elegant. Thank you. Okay, I might have some follow-up questions on this one. Marissa, the floor is yours.
I think what we really have to contextualize here is that the reason that the Charter Commission is even considering this is because of how much the current city attorney has failed. Now, I mentioned how it's a dual function office. On the municipal side, your fidelity is to provide, and your duty is to provide competence to the client, whether it's the department, the city council. So, for example, Tim McCosker called out the city attorney a few years ago for writing an ordinance that did not match the intent of his motion. When Nithya Raman passed a right to counsel ordinance, somehow the city attorney returned the ordinance without the word right. When the council authorized the city attorney to hire Gibson Dunn for the LA Alliance homelessness case, it was a $900,000 contract for 2 years. The city attorney signed off on $1.8 million in 2 weeks. Recently, when there was an injunction against LAPD for the use of less lethals against journalists for crowd control, the city attorney went over the head of the client and did not, and tried to lift that injunction and was rebuked by council. It is because of all of these reasons that the city council and the Charter Commission have been seeking more accountability for the city attorney. Now, at the same time, there has been a crisis of morale in the office. I've spent my campaign, I've spoken to over 100 deputies in the office. These are my former coworkers. I am a deputy, so understand that experience at the AG's office too. And they feel like they are being punished for her bad behavior right now. And so there's a lot of emotions and feelings about this, which is why I'm not going to take a public position. That's what I've pledged to them. But what I will say is, regardless of how the Charter Commission and the bifurcation is voted on, I am committed to leaving the office with more restrictions on the city attorney than I enter it, because we do need to add more accountability measures so that the city attorney can't go rogue. And that is exactly what she's been doing.
Okay, I think I do want to push a little. Did you say that you're not taking a position on this? Is that what you said?
I'm not going to take a public position, no, but I will happily talk through the values and help people understand the pros and cons.
Okay, and sorry, could you say why you're not taking a public position?
Yes, that has been at the request of several of the deputies. I have been working with them. And yeah, Sheila, Chidol, I'll bundle in your question too. So when I was at the city attorney's office, I was, according to Administrative Code 2321, I was appointed by Sue Franz and can share all the documents. As a deputy city attorney, that's how I appeared on court documents, with which I can share, how I was on the website before it was scrubbed. The city attorney placed a false article in the West Side Current. Mike Fuhr tried to go on record to correct it, but they wouldn't retract. So I was funded by an outside fellowship, but my title was deputy city attorney, which is what I've represented. And I got to know those colleagues well. They taught me everything as a young lawyer I now know about consumer protection. And so I've worked very deeply with them in crafting the campaign and making sure that we are building back the office together. And the request I've gotten from them is not to take a public position on charter reform. And so,
but what is the reason? I'm sorry, I'm just missing the reason, I guess.
You know, when you're a deputy, you work in this office generally for many, many years. And you take a lot of pride in that work. And every 4 to 8 years, without very little input or control, the head of your office changes. And sometimes it can go wildly wrong. And with the charter reform process, a lot of deputies feel that they haven't been consulted, feel that their concerns haven't been raised throughout this process, know that there is a need for accountability. And so in showing my respect for them, I have been trying to make sure that if they are asking me not to take a position on something because they want to have further discussions, they want to have their input heard, I'm trying to lead with that respect. And so again, I'm really happy to kind of talk through the issues and the pros and cons, but I do also think that a huge part of this job is creating a better management culture, which has been severely lacking.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, the next question is, I would like to hear what you think the office can and does do about the housing crisis and how your background has prepared you to address it. Now, I will be asking some follow-up questions about Venice Dell and Barrington Plaza, so I don't need you to go specifically into those if you don't want to right now. And I should say also, in the interest of fairness and full disclosure, that Feldstein Soto's office has helped me personally with my housing situation as a renter, speaking for myself. Okay, so for this question, you can take up to 2 minutes each if you like. All right, thank you. Oh, and I don't even remember where we're starting. Oh, I know where we're starting. This one, we're starting with you, Marissa.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, look at this. We've got an upgrade. My goodness.
Thank you.
Technology is advancing like this in this forum.
So
Wow.
there are a few ways in which the city attorney's office should be taking a larger role in addressing our housing and housing affordability crisis. On the people side, one of the things that they should absolutely be doing is we need to be doing tenants' rights enforcement. Now, as I mentioned, the city attorney's office can sue any business for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. That includes abusive landlords. There have been 23,000 complaints of tenant harassment filed, and only one landlord cited, which is a complete dereliction of duty to the public. Now, I'm on the tenants' rights team at the Attorney General's office, where actually just a few weeks ago, we got a stipulated judgment returning over $500,000 back to tenants who had been kept in uninhabitable conditions, had been unlawfully evicted, had illegal rent hikes. That's the type of work I do and that I know how to do. And so what I would be bringing to this office is scaling up the public interest litigation, starting a tenants' rights unit with dedicated attorneys to fight tenant harassment and make sure that we're holding abusive landlords accountable so we're keeping tenants housed. Now, the other part of it, which if you're going to have a follow-up question on Venice Dell, I don't want to jump the gun too much, but when the city council passes a housing project, the city attorney, it is not their role to insert their policy judgment over that of their client. It is the job to facilitate housing projects going through our processes legally and efficiently. The city attorney has often overstepped this role and gone over the head to obstruct her client. Venice Dell is a great example that we'll dig into a little bit more, but that's absolutely not the role of the city attorney. So as city attorney, I would know that if the client lawfully and dutifully went all through the procedures, passed a housing development, it would be my job to help facilitate it, not obstruct it.
All right, thank you. Aida.
Thank you. This is a really important platform for me because I'm a former tenants' rights attorney. I used to go to monthly clinics at Sage and LA Can on Skid Row helping tenants. And I think it's really important. I concur we should have a tenants' rights unit. Actually, under Hydee, when I used to work at the city attorney's office, we used to have a code enforcement unit. And that was actually the unit that investigated slumlords and made sure that they were held accountable for not for code violations and making sure they were repairing properties. And Hydee closed that unit. And I would make sure that we reopen it, but also expand it to investigate incidents of tenant harassment as well, which are used to push renters out, as well as things like illegal rent hikes and things like that that are used to harass renters, because I think we should have an all-encompassing office. And yes, I think our current system has a lot of bureaucracy where we have 23,000 complaints filed with LAHD, which is really underfunded and understaffed, and only 30 of those complaints were actually even referred to the city attorney's office. So there's obviously a lot of lag time and lack of resources referring those complaints. And in the meantime, tenants are languishing in units that are disrepaired, that have vermin, that have broken windows and things like that. So I think one thing, and I'm inspired by other city attorneys' offices in other parts of California that are advertise tenants' rights on their website, and we could have the same thing in our city attorney's office. And we should be able to go and investigate and work with tenant unions and work directly with people and not and just skip the middleman of LAHD waiting years before something is referred to our office, and make sure that we're getting complaints directly from our renters. And that's something that I would pursue. And I want to make sure that landlords are always held responsible for not making repairs in our city. And I'm going to be a champion for renters.
All right, thank you. Okay, now I think our next question is, yes, David Rosenstein asked about Venice Dell, which is, and maybe you folks might want to explain more about it, but my understanding is that it's a super controversial, proposed 100% affordable and permanent supportive housing project in Venice. My understanding is cursory, so you can correct me on the details, but what I get is that Feldstein Soto opposed the development as part of her campaign platform, and it was Tracy Park, council member Tracy Park was also opposed to it, and they won at the same time, and they were both able to work to create obstacles to its moving forward, and that the mayor and city council have deferred to them, which is practiced for a city council because it is in Parks, or would be in Parks district. So that it is currently stalled, although there is a lawsuit filed by public counsel and where Aida, you work or have worked, and by LA Forward Institute and others against the city. So I don't know, but I imagine the project could be revived. And I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on this issue, and I would give you 2 minutes each, and we're starting with Aida.
Thank you. And I think this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where real estate lobbyists and the corruption in our city and money in politics really dominates and makes it difficult for us to elect independent candidates. And this is a great example where both Tracy Park and Hydee Feldstein Soto were actually backed by this notorious landlord Douglas Emmett, who gave Hydee actually $200,000 for her campaign. And he's the landlord behind the Barrington Plaza evictions, but also they were both, her and Tracy Park were against the Venice Dell project, and Tracy Park actually championed that in her campaign. Some people don't want affordable housing in their neighborhood, and that's I guess, like, I would, if you want to call it a controversy, but I think, unfortunately, I think individuals have too much power to oppose housing when it becomes too political. While people are facing rising rents, they're facing being unhoused in our streets. And, Hydee also stated she was against SB 9 and SB 10. And I think that's also problematic, is we want to have candidates that will enforce our laws and make sure that they're going to be implemented. And I know that, SB 79 even came about, and we've had Metro trying to oppose that. And this is not something new, city council members trying to oppose and, be an obstacle for projects. Gil Cedillo also blocked bike lanes in his district, and it just shows you how city council members have too much power to block projects that are approved that can benefit our community members. And so I think it's important that we vote for people that are not going to politicize and not put the people first in our communities, and make sure that these projects are supported. And when I'm a city attorney, I want to make sure that not only are affordable housing projects being approved, but they're prioritized and fast-tracked.
Thank you. Sorry, I just need to respond to a little criticism in the chat. Okay, Marissa, the floor is yours.
Cool. Let's contextualize the Venice Dell project. So there's a city-owned parking lot in Venice that was where there was a project proposed for 120 all-affordable units that also would double the parking at the lot, as well as add canal access to the Venice canals. It went through 16 to 18 public meetings. It was approved twice by council and once by the Coastal Commission. Now, the city attorney and council member Park campaigned on killing this project. Now, as I kind of mentioned at the outset, when the client has passed a project and gone through all the processes, it's not the city attorney's role to obstruct that project. You can't insert your own policy judgment over that of council. That is their priority. That is their legislative domain. And so that was where it didn't really matter what type of project. The city attorney was breaching her duties of confidence. It's invited 3 lawsuits that had lost at every single stage. And I just want to repeat that, every single stage. It's cost the city over $1 million defending these lawsuits to not build housing during a time of a housing crisis, while at the same time, there's a $42 million grant from the state for this project that's on hold. There's a $3 million grant from the county that's for this project. that has been on hold, and we are losing over $1 million in taxpayer money to outside law firms. The city attorney keeps proposing new reasons, including a recent public memo where she takes issue with the appraisal value that actually was raised in the prior lawsuit and rejected by the court. These are frivolous arguments that are really only resulting in the waste of taxpayer money and continuing to not build affordable housing in a time of a housing crisis. I understand as a government attorney my ethical duties. I understand where my discretion is and where it isn't. And I would make sure that I am not inserting and politicizing these roles inappropriately.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful for me at any rate. Okay, we have a related question about housing, and then I'm going to address, because apparently there are questions about John McKinney, which is very complicated. So I was going to avoid it because it's kind of a long story, but I will address it after we have one. Well, actually, we have several more housing things. So I will do one more and then address that. This is from John Rothstein, and I think this is effectively verbatim what he wrote. In 2024, a Superior Court judge ruled that the Barrington Plaza mass evictions were illegal because the landlord misused the Ellis Act, a finding that directly contradicted the city attorney's office's own legal guidance that the city had no power to stop them. How can voters trust the current office to protect 600,000 rent-stabilized tenants when a private tenants association had to do the city attorney's job and win a case that the current office claimed was unwinnable? I apologize for not reading that well. So I will give each of you 1 minute to respond. Of course, it's unfortunate that the city attorney herself is not here to answer that question, because it sounds like it was really directed to her. Marissa, that is first for you.
Sure. So Barrington Plaza was a building, is a building in Venice with 700 rent-controlled units. There were issues that the sprinklers all needed to be replaced. The corporate landlord, Douglas Emmett, used an exception in the Ellis Act to try to mass evict all of those tenants. But it was clear from the face of the paperwork that there was evidence of fraud. I actually organized with those tenants. I wrote a letter to the city attorney's office because we have the power of pre-filing subpoena, asking the city attorney to issue a subpoena to start the process of that litigation. Because again, we can sue any landlord for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive, and lying on paperwork is deceptive, and also against our city and our local laws. She refused to do so. Douglas Emmett, as Aida mentioned, gave $150,000 to the IE that supported her. Now, the tenants that stayed won their case, but that was a Pyrrhic victory because many of them had already left. And so
okay, sorry. I guess I should have given you more time, but we've run out. But Aida, now you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I think this is a great example of the fact that the city needs to do more to protect tenants and needs to, again, she closed the code enforcement unit. So she has basically eliminated the unit that was dedicated to trying to investigate these types of cases. And so that's another reason why we need to dedicate resources to this. I think the city attorney has not prioritized these types of lawsuits. And although she might have said that it's not feasible, I think it's more there's political, motivations to not actually pursue these types of cases, especially when there's a conflict of interest, when the donors are involved in this type of lawsuit. And I think in general, people who are involved in lawsuits like this with the city really shouldn't be donating to people's campaigns because of this sort of, conflict of interest and different sorts of biases that can happen. And in the city attorney's office, you want to have as much independence as possible.
All right, thank you both. Okay, briefly, John McKinney joined the campaign very late after this was already scheduled, and while Hydee Feldstein Soto was still going to be joining us. So I invited him to his campaign to submit a statement, and he did not respond. And then a few days ago, his campaign reached out and wanted to participate. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's really, 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 really late. But I decided to ask the candidates what they thought, and they were both very gracious and said, fine, no problem. And so I said, sure. And then they said, oh, we can't. So there we are. And they did not submit a statement. So he's not here, and they did not submit a statement. So that is the story about John McKinney. Okay. And the next question is also housing related and also transit related. The controversial SB 79 housing bill, which would allow much denser housing near transit, passed last year. And the city is now grappling with how to manage and possibly mitigate its effects. And City Attorney Feldstein Soto opposed the bill on the grounds, I understand, at least in part, that we don't have the infrastructure to support it. I'm not an expert on this either, and I would like to give each of you a couple minutes, 2 minutes, to address the issue as you see appropriate, including how your background has prepared you to address it. And I should add that the Sustainability Alliance, our organization, did not take a position on it. So Aida, you are first for this one.
Thank you. I think this is really ties into the whole goal of this organization, NCSA, because SB 789 tries to address an issue of wanting to build denser housing when we are in a city of sprawl, of inefficiencies in terms of urban planning. And this is supposed to resolve this. And our current city is zoned about 74% for single family zoning. And that means you can't build multifamily housing in that entire area of the city of Los Angeles. And so SB 79 is very targeted. It doesn't upzone the entire city, and it focuses on transit areas. And I think that's incredibly important because if people have to commute to transit points, then it kind of defeats the purpose of having transit in the first place, and it makes it more accessible. And SB 79 was actually considerably revised with community input before it was actually became, legislated. And certain areas were actually, hands off for SB 79. And I read Hydee's letter, actually was consulted, asked by a reporter to comment on it as well. And I don't think that it was, necessarily rational. I think it was more based on her own political interest, because I think a lot of things she was addressing weren't actually issues in terms of SB 79. And being on a neighborhood council, we actually consistently advise the city in terms of what we think is beneficial for our communities, and we oppose the move of the city council to try to oppose SB 79 because we want to have denser housing to make sure that our communities, one, that we increase housing. And so if we are continuously pushing out people from the same multifamily zoned areas, which is what is happening right now, where older apartments are getting pushed out for bigger apartments and people are getting kicked out of their rent-controlled apartments, we're not solving the housing crisis. So we need to build densely to reduce our emissions and to provide housing.
Thank you. Marissa.
So again, here's the thing to remember with SB. So SB 79, it changes the zoning around transit areas to allow for greater density. Now, the thing is, the city attorney, she opposed SB 79. She argued it was an unfunded mandate. Now, that has a very specific constitutional meaning. I'm actually the only candidate who has litigated an unfunded mandate case and won when I represented 8 cities against Ron DeSantis when he actually imposed an unfunded mandate. What an unfunded mandate is a command to compel a local government to do something without providing the necessary funding. And that is against a provision in our California Constitution. The difference in being able to distinguish is, does the legal provision compel the local agency to act or merely invite voluntary action? Now, the thing with SB 79, and I was just, quoting the test right there. If anyone wants to look it up, it's 514 P3D 854 858 is the pin site. What is important to know about SB 79 is it doesn't compel Los Angeles to take any action. It invites voluntary action. It will change zoning laws. There will be many discretionary steps in between. That's why unfunded mandate is not a proper grounds to challenge this law. And if the city, as the city attorney is trying to do, gins up a lawsuit against the state law, they will lose, and we will lose taxpayer dollars. It's my job as the city attorney to not, again, insert my own policy preferences over that of the clients, to give dutiful legal advice, and to recognize that it's really not about my policy preferences. If the state law went through all of the proper procedures, which it did, and stands on good grounds, it's good law. And I would not lead the city into a frivolous lawsuit that taxpayers would pay the price for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this next question is from August Miller. I hope I'm pronouncing that mostly correctly. It's about Measure HLA, which would get the city of LA to implement their own Healthy Streets LA plan. And this is something that the Sustainability Alliance did support. And so I will speak, I guess, for myself and many in our organization. It's frustrating to see it not moving forward. My understanding is that Feldstein Soto's position is that the city does not need to implement it when non-city entities such as Metro carry out their own projects on the city's streets, and there is a lawsuit against the city on this. And Auguste wrote that Councilmember Tracy Park, and I did not know about this, but apparently Tracy Park mentioned at some point that Feldstein Soto is working on further ways to avoid implementing Measure HLA, and the question is why? Now, Feldstein Soto isn't here to answer that question, but I welcome your, the two of you, your thoughts on the measure and how you might support or oppose it. And I will give each of you 2 minutes on this one.
Sure.
And the first one, you've already figured out, it's Marissa.
Sorry.
There's a reason you are smart enough to be running for city attorney. Yes. I have to look at my notes to figure it out, but you guys don't. Okay. Go ahead.
You know, I personally supported HLA. I voted for it. It was supported overwhelmingly by voters. And then again, we run into the same kind of pattern I've been bringing up again and again. The voters overwhelmingly pass something. It's not the job of the city attorney to obstruct. But because of her personal policy differences and disagreements, that is exactly what she did, was delay and obstruct implementing language for HLA. And it impacted many city projects. Streets for All has been wonderful at bringing attention to this issue. And I am really proud to have their endorsement and to work with them, because as city attorney, what I would be doing is making sure that we are not holding up the implementation of HLA, that we are integrating it into our projects, because if we don't, we also are going to invite more liability. This is now the law. We need to make sure that it is implemented, that there are the clear guidelines, that they are applicable to our projects, so that we don't invite more lawsuits. Again, this is part of not only making our streets safer and making it safer for pedestrians and cyclists, but also being fiscally responsible with taxpayer money by not opening us up to further risk of litigation, by not abiding by the law that voters overwhelmingly passed.
All right, thank you. Aida.
Thank you so much. This is such an important issue for me, and I've been actually campaigning on it for months from the beginning of my campaign when I was going to Ciclavia and organizing bike rides. I'm a cyclist and as well as a transit user, so it's really important for me for this law to be implemented. I actually helped collect signatures for Measure HLA. Actually have worked with Streets for All on multiple projects. And I understand, Joe Linton of Streets Blog has actually been filing these lawsuits, and it's because there's a private right of action written into Measure HLA. And that means that the city is on the hook when it isn't implementing these projects. So when it's repaving streets and it's actually not implementing anything on the high injury network, which is different streets throughout our city, which was a plan actually approved overwhelmingly already by City Council in 2015, and that included review from the fire department. So this is already plans that were already approved to build bus and bike lanes in areas where there were high injury or deaths even on our streets to make them safer. So the fact that our city, and it's not even just our city attorney, our mayor can direct public works as well to implement these plans. So it's alarming that not only did people collect signatures for this ballot measure because the city council refused to adopt its own plan, So basically, they had to be strong-armed into implementing their own project. And on top of that, they're basically sort of, discouraging democracy in a way because people went through so much work just to get this on the ballot, just to push the city to finally take action to build safer streets. And so I'm definitely for making sure that Measure HL is implemented, and in general, just making our streets safer, looking at all the thousands of millions of dollars of lawsuits that we're being sued because people are getting killed on our streets more than homicides.
Thank you. Okay, the next question I think is my question. Some of you might know that we are working very hard on to get a ban on council file on artificial turf. And we've been working with city departments on their report backs on Council File 240602, I think is the number. And we were working with LASAN and then DWP on their report back. And first it was a collaborative relationship, and LASAN was showing us their draft on their report back. And then we were told that they'd been advised by the city attorney's office to reduce the scope of the report back. And it's hard for me to know what it's going to look like because although they'd been showing us their original draft, they then told us that they were not going to show it to us anymore. And so we've been talking with some of our partners, and the thinking is that there's a concern regarding liability, and that maybe there's an issue with permitting or it's called TMDLs, the total maximum daily load of toxic chemicals being exceeded. So, this is the stuff that, frankly, really bothers me when the more I learn about how the city works, the less happy I become. Because I'm realizing, this is the way I think about it. And if you guys want to correct me or if you can actually disabuse me of what I'm learning, I'd be thrilled. But it seems to me that the way the city is thinking about its liability, and they're thinking, okay, through this, the way the original report back was drafted, we're exposing a liability, and we don't want that. So the city attorney comes in and says, rewrite it, because we want to, the city attorney's job is to protect the city, meaning the municipal corporation, right? Not meaning the people of the city or the well-being of the city, right? That's not their job. So, and what I want the city attorney to do is to be thinking about the well-being of us and how we're doing on our health and all that stuff. But that's not their job. And that makes me very sad, and that makes me feel like our system is a disaster, and it's never gonna, the system isn't working. It's not set up to work. So I guess I just love your thoughts about, whose interest the city attorney is really working for, and how, if you guys were in office, if you guys could make it work differently. But I imagine maybe you'd get in there and you'd realize it was your job to do that too. I don't know. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and you each have 2 minutes, and I think Aida is up next.
I think it's kind of ironic that we're talking about this right after the housing, which again was city attorney was taking positions, not necessarily even protecting the municipal corporation or the people. It was political interests. So I think that definitely the city attorney should be considering the interests of the people. Obviously, when it's defending lawsuits and thinking about liability, that's going to be taking precedent. But when it comes to advising the city on what it's responsible to do, I think we should always be taking people into consideration, and that could be either the criminal division, the defending lawsuits, or especially advising our different city council and different department commissions. I'm familiar with artificial turf. As the chair of the Environmental Affairs Commission, we took a position to oppose it as well. It releases microplastics into the water, and with the sun and the heat, it releases chemicals, and it increases, cancer rates, and it's rather dangerous to our health. I think Cal State LA has their outside recreation area is completely astroturf, which is concerning for the students there. And so I think in general, the city actually needs to be taking action to reduce its liability by removing these things. Because a good example of this is, I would say the corollary, which is something I'm passionate about, is the Roundup use in our parks as well, which is also contributing an increase of 127% increase in Parkinson's for people who live within 2 miles of a park or golf course. And I've already spoken to our parks department, and they said they use agricultural levels of Roundup, not even like, gardening levels, which is really alarming. And 100 cities in California have already banned Roundup use. So I think that it's really advising our council to take action on these things rather than being defensive and actually already exposing themselves to liability, because just having these things exposes themselves to liability. You see all the Roundup lawsuits around the country already happening, and even advertisements on your cell phone. So it's already happening.
Thank you. That made me feel better. All right, Marissa.
I mean, artificial turf is a huge hazard. We know that it has PFAS chemicals that, as Ida mentioned, it can, when there's heat, it can leach into the water, into the soil, and cause real health risks. Now, when the city attorney when we order a report back, there are ways that the city attorney can help to make sure that we're mitigating any risk of exposure. But it's, again, not the city attorney's job to obstruct. It's the city attorney's job to help us get to yes, to make sure we're facilitating as much of that report back. And if there are genuine concerns, to find ways to mitigate them without killing the report back, and recognizing that you still have to maintain public transparency, as well as the council members' wishes for more information. Now, one of the ways that I would really love to help on this issue is, remember I said we can sue companies for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. We should be suing the companies that create this artificial turf. We not only have that power, we can sue companies for public nuisance, which is where you endanger the health, welfare, and safety. It's been the way that several cities, like San Francisco, went after the paint companies in the lead paint litigation. And it's something that I would want to do, to go after the companies that have been creating these astroturfs and these artificial turfs, and endangering the public. So that's how I would want to use affirmative litigation to proactively go after these companies and then reinvest that money into actually greening and making sure we're getting rid of this turf.
Now, Marissa, that makes me very excited, but one follow-up question. Do we have the resources, or would we have the resources to do that?
Oh, I love getting this question. So yes, so the fun thing, sorry, I get very excited about
Okay, no, I'm excited that you're excited.
Here's the fun thing about lawsuits under the unfair competition law. That's Business and Professions Code 17200. Under California Business and Professions Code 17206, when we win these lawsuits, we win an injunction against the company to stop them from engaging in any behavior. We win the restitution, which is the money that goes to the victims. Then we win mandatory civil penalties up to $2,500 per offense. And those civil penalties go to the government, and they can only be used for future consumer protection litigation. Now, the fun thing is that the cities that use this, like San Francisco, they are able to fund all of this work through the civil penalties. So San Francisco devotes about 15 to 20% of their office to public rights, and it is sustained entirely through the fees. It's revenue generating. And they're operating at a surplus so that if they didn't win for the next 3 to 4 years, they would still be able to fund these positions. In fact, 2 years ago, when City Attorney David Chu started a workers' rights division, he got a grant from the Civil Prosecutors Alliance, Coalition, which our city attorney actually pulled Los Angeles out of, got a grant to fund 2 seat positions, then did so much of this litigation that it now funds 15 attorneys on the civil penalties and has returned $20 million back to workers. That is the exact model that I would use, and that I've collaborated with deputies in the office to already build a plan of how we scale that up, make it reliant on the fees, and then shift those budgetary positions to the other parts of the office that are severely understaffed.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next question is another question from David Rosenstein. And I think, Marissa, you touched on this very briefly a bit ago. Sorry, I just lost my notes moved. Feldstein Soto has faced criticism for a position she took or represented regarding LAPD and use of force. So she's not here to defend her position, but I welcome Marissa, you and Ida sharing your thoughts on this. So Marissa, you are up first. And this is for 1 minute each.
Sure. So I think what that was referencing, I believe, was the city attorney's attempt to lift an injunction that was issued by a court against LAPD that restricted the use of less lethal weapons against journalists for crowd management. It's important to contextualize that this is an issue we have been sued over again and again. We were sued in 2000 and lost. We were sued in 2007 and lost. We were sued in 2020, and there was an injunction put in place. And the California State Legislature in 2022 passed new restrictions on the use of less lethals for crowd management. There was time, every single opportunity for the city attorney to change the practices. When the injunction was issued in September last year, the city attorney should have taken the steps to implement compliance, making sure that there were new protocols in place, that there was accountability and discipline. Instead, she motioned to lift the injunction and invite impunity the day before the No Kings protest. It doesn't make anyone safer, and it only invites more lawsuits. So I would invest in compliance with the law.
Okay, I perhaps did not give enough time for that question, but what's done is done. Ida, you have 1 minute for that question.
This is really important. This is an important issue for me, is making sure that we hold LAPD accountable. This was an injunction, and just to let you guys know, injunction is basically a court order that happens when the city is basically sued. And so the court ordered the LAPD basically to not attack journalists, which seems like a really standard thing to do. But LAPD said, no, actually, we don't want this court order. And the city attorney intervened on behalf of LAPD. And this is a good example when, Lisa, you were saying, like, should the city be involved in the people or the, corporation? And this is definitely what I would side with. The people is we shouldn't be attacking journalists. I wouldn't intervene on behalf of LAPD. I would make sure that injunction stood. And it's something that I think, and also there was injunction regarding Black Lives Matter protests, where they also sued the city and got further court orders for the police to not use certain use of force against protesters. And again, I think injunctions, court orders are a great tool in our lawsuits to make sure that LAPD is following the law and in implementing policies that it refuses to do so on its own.
All right, thank you. Okay, this next question is from Lionel Maris. As city attorney, and it's related, what can you do to reduce the city's liability costs due to LAPD misconduct? And I will add, this is me speaking, that I think it's related to sustainability, particularly because we have had drastic budget cuts due to environmental, let me start over. We've had drastic budget cuts to environmental programs. And a lot of that is because LAPD's misconduct or alleged misconduct has led to really, really expensive lawsuits. Okay, Ida, you are up.
How many?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, good question. 2 minutes. Sorry.
Great, no worries. This is such an important issue. It's hard to sub into 2 minutes. I'm going to see, make it as much of an overview as possible. I do concur that, police liability misconduct suits have been sucking out money from our general fund, which should go to sidewalk repair, should go to environmental issues. And the Charter Reform Commission is actually debating on whether or not we should take it out of their fund, LAPD's budget, which I agree with. I think there's multiple ways to reduce misconduct lawsuits. I think one way, which is what I want to do, is make sure that when we file criminal cases that LAPD brings to us, we only file cases where there's no police misconduct. So we're reducing the harm by not filing those cases. And we're basically telling LAPD and shaping policy that it should only be bringing us cases where there is no misconduct. They're following the law. And our city attorney's policies can influence LAPD behavior. The other thing I think is when we defend these lawsuits is when I went back to the injunctions is we could try to get court orders when they refuse to implement policies in order to prevent the harm to begin with. Because, whenever there's a lawsuit, someone has been harmed, someone has been killed, and they're rightfully suing the city because the city has decided not to do anything about it to prevent it. And a good example is the death of Keenan Anderson, who was visiting in Southern California. He was a relative of a Black Lives Matter founder. He was tased about 6 times by police when he was pulled over for a hit and run investigation, at one point more than 30 seconds at the time. And still, LAPD has no policy on how many times or how long you can tase someone. And after this happened, they went from buying 2-prong tasers to 10-prong tasers. And so another, avenue is advising the city not to approve the more lethal violent weapons that people are using and calling them less lethal as well to prevent these types of harms from happening. So I think there's a myriad of options to be approaching there.
All right, thank you. Marissa.
Sure. Going back to the budget question, it's important again to contextualize. So the city council for the past decade has pretty consistently budgeted about $87 to $90 million for liability. It was not a problem in past administrations to stay close to that. In fact, they would exceed sometimes by 10 million one year, 36. In her first year, the incumbent exceeded by 100 million. In her second year, 200 million. And in her third year, nearly 250. And it's not just because we're getting sued more often. We're resolving around the same amount of cases per year. But she's increased outsourcing to outside counsel by over 500%. Attorneys and law firms that are billing us thousands of dollars per hour that are incentivized by hourly billing to stretch out litigation. And then also, she's failing to value cases properly and be able to determine when you go to trial or when you settle, and is enforcing many cases to trial for nuclear verdict. A good example reported in the Times was a plaintiff's attorney offered to settle 5 cases for 10 million. She forced it to trial and it came back with a $40 million verdict. 1/3 of our liabilities are police-related liabilities, both HR, internal HR, and use of force. The 3 things that I want to do is mitigate the overspending caused by this administration by cutting reliance on outside counsel, except when absolutely necessary, when there's a conflict or there's such a niche area that it doesn't make sense to hire an individual position, a full-time position. 2, I would want to implement the case valuation procedures we see in other offices, particularly the DC Attorney General, which has been able to evaluate cases up front so that it has saved the district tens of millions of dollars. And then the biggest piece was what I was talking about earlier is we need to invest in compliance. We need to proactively make sure that we are not getting sued for the same things again and again and again. And particularly like with the LAPD example, that we're implementing protocols, having accountability, and keeping by discipline.
All right, thank you. Okay, this question is for Marissa, but Ida, you are welcome to answer as well. And it's from Joth Rothstein. And I think I'm going to just read it verbatim. Ms. Roy, you've claimed City Attorney Feldstein Soto is scared to sue the Trump administration. Yet her office is currently leading a 36-city coalition against federal troop deployments and is being sued by the Trump Department of Justice for refusing to dismantle LA's sanctuary city protections. How can you tell voters she is scared to fight when the president's own administration has singled her out as a primary legal adversary? You have 2 minutes.
Sure. I'm not telling anyone that anything that she didn't tell herself. She went to the Sherman Oaks Homeowner Association in March 2025 and said that we've elected not to be at the forefront of litigation against the administration because they are not affecting us. Now, that it's also important to contextualize that when Trump, right at the beginning of his administration, did a ban on birthright citizenship, the California Attorney General and the San Francisco City Attorney sued. And the LA City Attorney not only did not join that lawsuit, but didn't even join the amicus brief that hundreds of cities joined. When Trump issued the first executive order to pull federal funding from sanctuary cities, San Francisco, Santa Clara, San Jose, Sacramento, San Diego sued. They went through all the processes. The city attorney did not join that lawsuit for months. It took a council motion, 25-6094, where the council forced the city attorney to intervene in the ACLU and Public Counsel's lawsuit against ICE. When the federal administration sued the city, there's no discretion. Of course, the city attorney would defend, but she has not elected to lead any of the litigation against the Trump administration. One thing I'm very proud of this week is that the Attorney General Rob Bonta, San Francisco City Attorney David Chu, and San Diego City Attorney Heather Ferbert all came out endorsing my campaign for the reason that the city attorney has been missing in action against the Trump administration, and they need our support right now. Right now, we need to be suing the Trump administration at every opportunity, is what I have experience doing. And this city attorney is not leading on this issue. And it's something that her own colleagues and the heads of other offices, and indeed the highest attorney in this state, felt was important enough to endorse her opponent.
Okay, thank you. Ida, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think it's really important, obviously, to use every resource to oppose Trump. And Mike Fuhrer actually did the same exact thing during the first Trump administration. And actually, I advised him on a couple of different issues in terms of making sure that we had the right policy for Represent LA, which was a fund to help immigrant defense, and as well as wrote an ordinance to prevent us from having a religious registry, which is something that Trump actually threatened at his first term. And so I do think lawsuits can help. I do also think we should make sure that we're focusing our resources as well on the local issues and partnering and joining with other city attorneys is a really great choice. But for instance, our city continues to approve, mass surveillance, private surveillance contracts that with Flock and other private companies that have been cooperating with ICE. And our city is not doing enough to protect our residents right now at home in terms of basically funding any type of immigrant defense, making sure that people feel safe, making sure there's some support with terms of rent, mutual aid. And so I think if we're going to invest in lawsuits, we have to make sure that they're carefully written because many of these lawsuits have, resulted in a lot of money and failures and actually really bad rulings, like the due process lawsuit that we were engaged in that went up to Supreme Court, and actually Supreme Court said it's okay for racial profiling to happen. So that was a big detriment. And right now we have a very unfriendly Supreme Court. So we do have to be careful about what type of lawsuits we bring. Colorado did bring a really great lawsuit in terms of how determination of a flight risk of an immigrant was determined. But then the Fifth Circuit came out and said that it was okay for them to arrest immigrants, even though they've been here for 30 years. So I just want to explain that it's really important to consider all those factors when filing a lawsuit.
All right, thank you both. Okay, our next question is from Karen Waters. She's one of our bonk commissioners. I tweaked her question a teeny smidgen because Feldstein Soto isn't here. Why should we entrust you with our votes? Please share how you would work with our neighborhood councils and the Black, Brown, and marginalized communities. 2 minutes each, starting with you, Aida.
Thank you so much for this question. I think this is so important, and I think it's important for people to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And throughout this whole campaign, I've reached out to organizations on the ground. I've been at strikes, I've been at rallies, I've been at community organizing events, organizations that don't have the capability of endorsing, or giving money. These are just grassroots organizations doing Home Depot patrols or, knocking on people's doors, going to businesses, preparing them for ICE raids. And I think having that on the ground perspective is so important. And I'm already working with organizations like, Black Lives Matter or other organizations like Unión del Barrio, which is already in the community doing the work. And I think if you're not doing that work now, then we can't expect someone to do it when they're in office. And as someone who's been an activist for more than 25 years, I've been doing the work in our communities and I've been on a neighborhood council. So I know how important it is to make sure that we have that pipeline. And I think one thing that, Hydee did was close the neighborhood prosecutor program, which is something that I worked with when I was at the city attorney's office, as well as when I was at a neighborhood council. And I think it's a great pipeline for our community members to have someone directly from the city attorney. And we could even expand that office to make sure we're implementing mediation programs and restorative justice through that program, because it would allow us to, prevent things to get to the prosecutorial level or to suck up more resources. And we used to have a very successful mediation program, and I think it continuously kept getting defunded. And I think that could be refunded in conjunction with the neighborhood prosecutor program. So I think what's important is that I have already been on a neighborhood council for 4 years, working with the city and the city attorney's office. And so I understand exactly that perspective and the importance of that. And as well, I've been in the city attorney's office as a deputy city attorney, actually in Los Angeles and in San Diego. So I have that perspective, and I've been a community organizer. And I think all those facets really make it an important position and experience to have in this position.
Thank you. Marissa.
Sure. I have spent my entire career as a government litigator doing public interest law and working with communities to build lawsuits, which is a little bit unique in this space. when I built my first case against 3 port trucking companies that were misclassifying drivers as independent contractors and using that as a ruse to deduct hundreds of thousands from their wages. I built that case with the Teamsters and with Lane. One of the cases I'm proudest of in my entire career, the case against 2 car washes who were paying workers as little as $4.50 an hour because they were threatening immigration consequences for undocumented workers. We were able to work with Clean Car Wash to bring that lawsuit to protect the workers from retaliation, give them anonymity, and to win them back $10,000 to $40,000 each. My recent tenants case, we've been working with legal aid. I've been working with the tenants. I've spoken to all of the tenants. I've toured their homes personally. I've sat with them and heard their stories. That's how I build lawsuits. It's not a faceless lawsuit. I understand that behind every caption is a family. And so that's exactly how I want to build these lawsuits and these public interest lawsuits with the city, is that I want to bring communities into the process. I want to make sure that tenants are part of building the lawsuits that are going to reflect their stories and get them recovery. That when we're building lawsuits to offset the terrible corporate pollution, we are then working with community organizations to reinvest that in their communities, particularly communities that have been underserved and overlooked. And so that is how I'm going to function as the city attorney, to make sure that we are working deeply with community to build public interest lawsuits that reflect them. And it's exactly what I've done as a government litigator my entire career. So these aren't just empty words, they're actually my track record I'm running on.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our next question is from Paul Gamberg, and he and I reworked this question a little bit together. The question is, neighborhood councils struggle with community engagement and participation, and some of the Brown Act or conflict of interest laws or interpretations of those laws by the city attorney's office can be a barrier. If you were the next city attorney, how would you advise the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and neighborhood councils? How can we increase the worthy goal of increasing interpretation? That's a repetition of the word increase that I have to take responsibility for. That is not Paul's fault. Of the people while still following the Brown Act, recently revised via State Bill 707.
Participation. Increasing participation.
Yes.
We want to increase the ordinary citizens' participation.
Yes. Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Okay, he doesn't like my reworking. I think I said that part. I just didn't like I didn't catch that I repeated the word increase. That was bad. Okay, 2 minutes each, starting with Marissa. Was that clear enough, the gist?
I think the gist was clear.
Okay.
So I've been really, thrilled throughout this campaign, but also just through the course of, a decade of volunteering with a variety of community groups to get to know a lot of people who serve on neighborhood councils. And I have heard, particularly in this campaign, the repeated frustrations with conflicting advice from the city attorney's office or inadequate advice altogether. And I think one story that really stayed with me that several neighborhood council members brought to me throughout the campaign is right at the beginning. They wanted to distribute know your rights information for immigrants, and the city attorney was blocking that, saying that we don't provide, that it would create attorney-client issues. Now, listen, during the campaign, I have done, while I was also working at the California Department of Justice on my own time, have done, know your rights trainings, and I've given all the proper disclaimers. We can give the right disclaimers. The city attorney shouldn't be trying to obstruct. It should be trying to support and look at the legal avenues to empower neighborhood councils within the bounds of the law and be giving consistent advice. And so I think what I would do that I feel is missing is making sure that we have very outlined and transparent protocols, and that when we give advice to one city neighborhood council about an issue, we are also sending that out to all neighborhood councils, and that we're also letting them know that we've received an inquiry. So if they would like to add to that inquiry or would like to add research questions, they can. And so that is how I would be interacting with the neighborhood council. So we don't have a patchwork of legal advice that is conflicting, but that we have a consistent set of advice, and that we're helping to empower our neighborhood councils to understand the balance of the law, but how we can also make sure that we are supporting their initiatives as much as possible.
All right, thank you. Aida.
This is a great question, and like I had mentioned earlier, was on a neighborhood council. I actually had the benefit of seeing the legal advice issue from the city attorney, both under Mike Fuhr and under Hydee Feldstein Soto, and how that dramatically changed, and she was much more restrictive, and it resulted in a lot of problems with our neighborhood council, including we even had to change locations of our meetings. So there's a lot of issues we've had with her office basically being very stringent on interpreting laws. And so I would, having had that experience, I would make sure that these neighborhood councils are supported and not, harangued or restrained by my office. And having that perspective, I think, is really important. The Brown Act is such a, important law in our state. It's a unique law that it's supposed to basically support we have open meetings. And our current city attorney actually hasn't even been implementing the Brown Act properly because there was a closed door meeting to confirm the sweep of 9,000 encampments, and that was supposed to be reported in an open meeting because it's supposed to be, because any decision has to be open so there comments can be made. And we don't even know to this day who voted on this sweeps, and our city was sued because of that. So when our city is not being, is not giving the correct advice and not even following the law itself, then that's extremely problematic. So I think it's really important to have someone in the office that knows the law, that can actually apply it. And I also, as a neighborhood council member, I created the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, where we encourage having more languages on our website. We provided community agreements. Our goal was to increase a more diverse and welcoming neighborhood council. And I think that's the type of policies I would actually support as well on a neighborhood council and actually in my own city attorney's office.
All right, thank you. Okay, this next one, and we have a few left, but we're wrapping it up, which is great, because it's almost 8. From Christian Macedo, which I tweaked a teeny smidgen. What will be or have been your environmental justice priorities? And Aida, you are up first, and you have 2 minutes.
Well, I mean, being an environmental justice advocate, I have so many interests, and I've already worked on a lot of things. Being the chair of Environmental Affairs Commission, I help advocate for the room to roam, the restoration of habitat connections, making sure that we are inspecting our oil well facilities and creating an ordinance regarding that, making sure that our projects like the LA Zoo expansion plan follows our actual environmental laws, breaking free from plastic and single-use plastics, and Roundup use, which I had alluded to earlier. And right now, I think, our city is repeatedly the worst air pollution in the country. And so I think one of the biggest things that I would make sure is that we are implementing Measure HLA, that we are implementing any type of safety features that makes it easier to take transit or bike in our city, because that is taking care of making sure our streets are cleaner and that we reduce emissions from transportation, which is the biggest source of our air pollution. I'd want to make sure to advise the city to reduce or eliminate Roundup use in our parks and golf courses, which I alluded to, increase our Parkinson's risk dramatically for residents. I want to make sure that we implement and enforce our tree ordinance, which is routinely ignored by our city and results in many of our protected trees being demolished by various landowners. And so I want to make sure that we are implementing it to the fullest degree to preserve our tree canopy, which is also incredibly important for an environmental issue. I want to make sure that we reopen the environmental crimes unit that Hydee had closed. That there are still environmental, crimes being investigated, but without the unit, it's not as strong like the other units that she's closed. And I want to make sure that we enforce CEQA. It's our landmark environmental law, and it should be used to advise, protect, and enforce and prosecute any type of polluters, and making sure our city is following it.
Okay, thank you. Marissa.
Sure. So, when I was in law school, we had a clinic with the San Francisco City Attorney's Office, and they had a little bit of a crazy approach where they would let law students come up with and pitch ideas. And the idea was that, or the theory I think behind it is that law students were, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and sometimes wouldn't always think of all the constraints that we condition ourselves as lawyers, and they would be creative. One of the pitches that my friend and I worked on was pitching the city of San Francisco on suing fossil fuel companies for all of the ways that they had misled and downplayed the impacts of climate change and then try to recover for the city of San Francisco. And after I graduated, that was litigation that the San Francisco City Attorney's Office pursued. It's become a landmark case that has set precedent that the Attorney General's office followed recently when the Attorney General sued fossil fuel companies for misleading information about the recyclability of plastics. This is the type of work that I want to scale up at the LA City Attorney's Office. I want to focus on two areas with environmental protection and justice and consumer protection. Sue corporate polluters that are dumping toxic chemicals into our neighborhoods, as well as sue the companies that are providing misleading information and having a poor climate impact. And then I want to take those recovery and we can use Cypre to make sure that they are reinvested into communities. And that is how we hold polluters accountable, make polluters pay. It's the same kind of theory just on the litigation side. And then make sure that we are offsetting the impacts and really reinvesting and working with communities. So that is going to be my approach as city attorney to environmental issues.
All right, thank you. There's one question I was going to ask, but I'm going to skip it because we are at 8 and I think we're in okay shape. I'm going to let you guys, each of you, make your closing statement for 1 minute each. And I think Ida, you go. Yes, you are up next. So you can make your. Oh, did I say Ida? I meant Marissa.
It's all right. No.
So go ahead.
I just want to thank you all so much for having us both here today. I think one of the most exciting things about this office is truly its potential to be the most significant public interest law office in our city. And I'm the person who has been spending their entire career as a government litigator really doing this work, doing the workers' rights cases, crafting the pitches for the climate justice cases, bringing the tenants' rights cases, suing the Trump administration. That's all my legal work. And that's what I'm going to bring to this office to scale up. It's why I'm proud to have the largest coalition of unions, democratic clubs, progressive organizations, grassroots organizations supporting our campaign, because we really have a clear contrast here. A corporate bankruptcy attorney, a public interest government litigator. And what I plan to bring to the city attorney's office is to make sure that it is working with community to build lawsuits that protect community, that reinvest in community, and that really truly represent the public.
Thank you. Ida.
Thanks so much for having me here and for letting me share my passion for environmental issues. Los Angeles deserves an experienced candidate that stands firmly against the corporations causing the climate crisis and the exploitation of the working class. Our current city attorney is not doing that job, but it's not just about changing the face of the office. It's about changing the system, and it's about making sure that we don't have money controlling our politics. The fight to save the planet, for peace and against ICE, our fights are all connected. The same billionaires that are profiting off these horrors are funding the campaigns of politicians who aren't standing up for our rights. Los Angeles deserves a city attorney that works for them, not the corporate interests and executives lining the pockets of my fellow candidates. I'm not part of the political elite or establishment. I'm a fighter, and even in the face of lack of resources and discrimination, I fought to get here. I'm not taking money from people who are destroying our planet, and I will always stand by my values, and I will always stand with the people. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciated your time, and thank you so much. I wish both of you really good luck. I know not everybody gets to win, but I wish both of you luck in your endeavors, and I think it's going to be a really exciting campaign, and thank you for this evening. And we'll share the chat one way or another. I mean, we'll definitely post the chat. We'll post the recording and we'll post the chat, so you'll be able to see all of that as well. And we will continue with our committee reports. Can somebody on the board unspotlight us so we can see everybody and get to those?
I'm on it.
Thank you, Charles. And I need to, oops, why is that showing? What's happening now? I don't know. Okay. Why am I spotlit? That's awkward.
Well, we
Okay.
wanted to watch you.
And that's not awkward, Charles. Okay. Let me see if I can get to okay, maybe I'll just try to talk off. I know what I'll do. Terry, can you talk about artificial turf?
I can give a quick update. So we're
Thank you.
focusing
So
on
this is an update, sorry, this is an update from our advocacy committee while I try to get to the slides. It
Oh.
always takes me a minute. I can't even get to any of the slides right now. I don't know why. Go ahead, Terry.
Well, I can give you an update
Can you
on
introduce yourself, please?
again, Terry Saucier with the Tarzana Neighborhood
Oh, yeah,
Council.
that's right. You already did that. Sorry.
And LANCSA. I'll speak briefly about the artificial turf if that's okay, and you can speak about the rest on the advocacy. I don't have that in
Yeah,
front
if
of
I can get to the slide, sure.
All right, so quickly, artificial turf. We're working on the council file 24-0602. We're following up with the various departments and agencies that are required to give report backs. Lisa's already spoke about LAWP, LA Sanitation. We are also following up though with Rec and Parks. We're giving public comments. They're supposed to do a study. We are working with LAUSD. And if people are interested in learning more, please come to the advocacy meeting and we'd love to talk to you a little bit more.
Great, thank you. Charles, can you give the fun news about Metro, where we are with Metro and native plants and the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean it's don't get too excited about it, but we have our coalition project to try to compel or not compel, but certainly try to get Metro to change their policies to include a design requirement that would put a large species, native species, large canopy tree into the design requirements for all new train stations and all new bus stations going forward. And we brought that to the Metro Sustainability Council, and it took 3 months and some behind the scenes meetings to get people on board. But we did have a vote last Friday, and the Sustainability Council has now voted unanimously to support that initiative and that coalition and is recommending it to Metro Board. We're now going to move forward with our various representatives and coalition members to speak to board members at Metro and try to get this to get some traction with the actual board. So step by step, it's a long process, but so far the results are positive.
Thank you. Also, a lot of stuff, as was touched on in the meeting, is moving very quickly now in the Charter Reform Commission process. Public Bank is moving. I don't have time to get into that tonight, but if you're following it, you might know. The capital improvement project stuff is moving. Well, as you heard tonight, stuff regarding the city attorney is moving. A lot of things are moving in the charter reform process that we've taken positions on. That's one thing to note. We have some ideas about how to improve gray water systems that we're working on very slowly in the advocacy committee. We have some interesting ideas about how to help landlords meet their maximum temperature thresholds for rental units. LA Climate Week is coming up, and they would like neighborhood councils to write letters regarding suggesting an annual observance for that. Mono Lake is becoming an interesting issue, so we're probably going to take that on, and we're also probably going to take on used library books. So that some of the things happening, if you want to join us, in case you want to join us, we usually meet the first Sunday of the month. That's coming up April 5th, which is Easter, but I think we're still going to meet. And if you want to chair the committee, let me know. Okay, energy. AJ, are you here?
Yep.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, so mine is relatively short, but we have finally completed our letter around the LA 100 plan. So just quick overview. This is LA's efforts to reach 100% renewables. So as just a quick recap, we basically tailored the letter as a kind of a more, as some of our committee members say, a North Star approach. And we voted at committee level and would like to thank the board members for also approving and doing some tweaks to the letter as well. The other thing that we're working on is still working on some research around the motion relative repeal of Ordinance 187714, which is tied to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling with the California Restaurant Association versus Berkeley. So had some interesting share from giving a shout out to committee member Fred Coons for sharing some insights with us on the New York law and just kind of how they were able to impose much stricter requirements and showing us proof of success. So we're continuing to follow on this. And at some point in the summer, I believe we're supposed to be getting report back on where LADBS is on this. And then right now we're in the middle of a letter around the polluters pay the Polluters Pace Climate Super Fund, which was tied to SB 6874, which unfortunately was failed legislation at the state. So it's focused around acknowledgement of Katie Yaroslavsky's previous support with hopes of future legislation on that. And then finally, we're still in the search of an energy committee chair. So whether you want to start by joining the energy committee, just getting a glimpse of what we do first. If you would like to participate and see what we do, we meet every third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. And that's all for my updates.
All right, thank you. And in case some of you don't have all the ordinances memorized, that ordinance number 187714 is about new building electrification. Okay, transportation and land use.
Hello. So we recently had, a couple of, we were supposed, this is just from the last one. Maybe I should have talked about the last two meetings that's happened since the last time we met. But we did have a meeting on March 10th, Tuesday. It's with our new co-chair. I don't know what happened in this slide, but it does have most of the ideas in there. It just doesn't look formatted correctly. But anyway, we had a brief discussion about the Metro D line opening. There's also discussion about the Pico Boulevard redesign. But notably is the most notable thing was the Sunset and Cesar Chavez Safety and Mobility Project. It's like it's part of the Sunset for All, where they're going to be extending a bike lane where Alameda and not Cesar Chavez, which Cesar Chavez Boulevard.
It's not going to be Cesar Chavez Boulevard for long.
I was gonna say, I know, I was like, I felt kind of weird saying that out loud. Sorry. That boulevard that's by the Olivera Street. So we'll eventually be having a vote on that as a board, and then we'll bring this to a vote as at the full meeting. But our next meeting will be April 14th. That's in a couple of weeks. And I also have a new co-chair. So I'll just be reporting what's been going on with our meeting, because Chase usually doesn't really go to our monthly meetings. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Trees.
I guess I'll give this.
I had it to unmute. I'm sorry.
Jen here? Yeah, okay.
I'm here, yeah.
Okay.
But barely. As the Trees Committee knows, but maybe not all of you in the NCSA know, my husband has brain cancer, and I've been really handcuffed to taking care of him. So he's disabled, and it's happened very suddenly. So and Charles has been a help, and he's going to take on the next meeting of the Trees Committee. He's done this wonderful pilot. I was there when it was planted a year ago, and we actually got the city of LA Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division to approve the planting of native trees that are not usually planted by the city, to be planted as street trees in parkways, and neighbors are on a system of watering them. And this is a great experiment, and we hope that this will enable the city trees palette to be enlarged. And how Charles did this is what be the subject of our March 28th meeting, which is on Zoom from 1:30 to 3:30. We meet bi-monthly. At our last meeting, I presented all the lists of trees that are not being watered by the city after 3 years, even though they planted them, and tried to get neighborhood councils interested in taking on the watering of the trees in their area. But I didn't get much response for this. So I'll take this out to the wider community here. If your neighborhood council is interested in saving some of these trees that have been already planted and have reached the 3-year mark, but may not survive past 3 years because the city cut the budget of the Urban Forestry Division, and they chose to cut it in their watering projects rather than and this is confusing because these projects are subsidized by the fees that people pay to be allowed to remove a street tree. There is a new proposition that has been presented at Board of Public Works to actually increase these fees so that more care can be taken with these substitute trees that are planted, and also a list of streets where these trees would be planted in every council district. You can find that list in the Board of Public Works agenda for not this past Monday, but I believe it was the Monday before. So if you need this list and want to email me at trees@ncsa.la, I can also send it. And just updating what's going on in the city. Nazarian has made a motion to try to expand the protected tree ordinance. And he wasn't aware of some of the things that our CFAC subcommittee on expanding the protected tree ordinance has been working on. So the draft was sent to me. Luckily, it's not been publicized, and I've been able to give some feedback on it. And that I do have a good relationship with this deputy in charge of planning. So hopefully that motion will get made more in line with the kinds of things that we've been trying to promote, both at CFAC and at the Trees Committee. Let's see. I guess lastly, I just wanted to say that my brother-in-law and I were driving on Van Nuys Boulevard today, and he was admiring the trees. And I said, they're all going to be gone, all 600 of them for 6.7 miles. And he just was in shock. So, he's here from Boulder, Colorado, where you would never do something like that. And I said, this is just because Metro needed 2 feet to build the East Valley Transit line. So I urge any of you that are supporting transit to support not taking out devastating amounts of shade canopy and trees when transit is built. And that's it. That's my report. Thank you. So see you on the 28th. And thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Joanna. And I don't, I'm so sorry about your husband, and we're all sending, I don't know,
I know.
whatever
It's
thoughts
been
we
very,
can your way.
thank you. It's been really hard. I mean, he he fell on over the weekend and had to go back to the hospital because he hit his head. I mean, it's just, it's really hard. Like, and so yeah, it is really a shock in our lives. And so I am looking for a vice chair or substitute chair for the trees committee. I don't know. I mean, I'm plugging along as best I can, but I know that more could be done if we had some help. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a theme.
Yes.
Okay, through thread through lots of our committees. So something for some of you folks to think about. Okay, so announcements. One announcement. So we have for LA Climate Week, Aurora, you're on your phone, Aurora. Do you want to talk about the event on the 13th if you're there and are you able to speak, or does Charles want to?
I will if she doesn't. I mean,
Okay, she might not be able to. Go ahead, Charles.
so we're doing, you can access this in our calendar, and we are doing a tour of the Athens Materials Reclamation Facility.
Actually, I didn't put it in our calendar. I didn't think to do that, but it is on our event page.
Okay, well, it's also on the LA Climate Reality calendar if you need to look at something
Well,
right
no,
now.
it was on our
I
event
know.
page.
Okay, all right, all right. So, anyway, it's a joint event with LA Climate Reality Project, and we are hosting this for LA Climate Week. It will be on Monday.
I'm going to put the link in the chat this very second.
Okay, you do that. On
Thank you.
Monday the 13th.
I mean, it's for all of you guys too. It's actually in the run of show.
Yeah, so we're doing this thing. We're going to the Athens Material Reclamation Facility, which is where they process recyclables. And this is a really important part of the climate struggle that we often don't give much attention to. Our waste is a huge element of our climate work and contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and all kinds of stuff. And so this will be a very insightful tour that we rarely get access to. We would have loved to have been able to do this on a weekend where more people might have been available to do it, but it simply wasn't an option for us. So it's a Monday 10 a.m. thing at Irwindale, so it's a little bit further in. We do have a carpooling link on the sign up sheet that you would be taken to. And you can also, I'm going to try to take public transit, which is going to be a little bit of an interesting challenge on this one. But anybody who wants to do that with me, I'll see you there. And here's the one word of caution. We are limited to the space available for this event. And as of the meeting start time tonight, we only have 7 spots left. So if you're interested in this and you haven't signed up already, I encourage you to do so quickly because we do expect it to completely fill up. So there you go.
Looks like Terry beat me to it. Thank you, Terry.
I want Charles to document this on like the NCSA Insta or something, or like do like a live to like your journey.
My journey through trash?
No, your journey to get to there using
the public transit thing. Okay, for the transit.
Yeah.
Well, the Gold Line or whatever it's called now, I think goes there.
It goes a couple miles away, so you have to take a bus from there, and depending on the time of day, it's 2 buses. So I'm gonna try to make it work. So
okay, well that part you might want to just hop on a little Uber for that last part. Anyway, okay, and then we are working, you guys. We're working on a candidate forum, but working on candidate forums is very hard, and I see that Glenn is not happy with me, but I'm used to Glenn not being happy with me, so that's okay. But working on candidate forums is very hard, so I'm hoping to have another one for LA Climate Week, because I really want one for LA Climate Week, but it might not happen. So we'll see. But I think those are our announcements. Are there others? Glenn has one. Glenn, go ahead.
Don't take it personally, Lisa. It was the Sustainability Alliance as a whole or any other alliance. My announcement is the mayor is releasing her budget on April 20th. So they are finalizing their recommendations for each of the city departments now. So if anyone has any input, now is the time. Literally, March is the time to give that input. If you know anyone on the mayor's budget team, help influence that. Typically, what the mayor proposes in the budget, 99% of it ends up through the city council process as is. Those kind of literally tweaking around the edges when it gets to through the city till the end of May. So this is a critical time right now. If you have particular programs, departments, anything that's affected by the city budget, now's the time to weigh in. Thanks.
And what I've heard is that the budget is in, I don't know if it's in as bad shape as last year, but not much better. Is that your understanding, Glenn?
They've asked each city department to cut back. I'm not sure if it's 2% to 5%. I mean, it might vary a little bit by each department. So that's kind of the challenge. By the way, the council file number, I don't think it's been open yet, but it will be very soon. It's 26-0600, 26-0600, and it should be open any day now. And you can start filing comments and community impact statements from your neighborhood council.
And I guess it's the same numbers every year, except for they just changed the year, which is
Correct.
This year 26. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
No.
Eddie, are you talking to us?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Charles.
Just really want to really very quickly invite everybody to the LA Climate Reality Project chapter meeting that's going to happen a week from tonight on March 29th. Our guest is going to be Ben Stapleton, who is the executive director of USGBC California. We're going to be talking about building electrification, getting off of fossil fuels in our built-out sector. I know a lot of people in this room are interested in that subject, so please come by and join us if you're interested. Link is going to be in the chat.
Thank you. Terry.
Yeah, just promoting the 13th Annual Earth Day Festival. We're co-hosting in Tarzana on April 11th. It's a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2. We have about 35 exhibitors at this point, and it'll be a really nice day. So just visit the Tarzana Neighborhood Council website, and the information's in the chat as well.
All right, thank you. If there are no more announcements, I'll be totally flabbergasted and flummoxed because we never end early, but we can. Guess that's it. All right, give you guys 5 minutes left of your, or 4 minutes left of your evening. Thank you. I think it was a good event, and if you don't agree or if you do agree, you can tell us using the link that Charles popped into the chat. And have a good evening, and we'll hope to see you soon. And thank you for joining us tonight. Good night.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.